February 26, 1959. A search and rescue team trudged through deep snow in the northern Ural Mountains of Russia. They were looking for 9 missing hikers. What they found would become one of history's most terrifying mysteries. The hiker's tent was discovered on a remote mountainside, torn open from the inside. Their belongings were still there: food, warm clothes, equipment, but the hikers were gone. Their footprints led away from the tent, barefoot, into the freezing wilderness. Over the next few weeks, all 9 bodies were recovered. The scene was inexplicable. Some had died from hypothermia, but others had injuries that couldn't be explained: massive internal trauma, broken ribs, a fractured skull. One was missing her tongue and eyes. There were no signs of a struggle. No other footprints, and traces of radiation were found on their clothing. The Soviet government quickly closed the investigation, sealing the files for decades. The official cause of death: a compelling natural force. But what force could cause experienced hikers to flee their tent in terror, barefoot into deadly cold, and die under such mysterious circumstances? This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident. After 65 years, we may finally know the truth. In January 1959, 10 students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute assembled for a challenging winter expedition. Their goal was to reach Otorten, a mountain in the northern Urals, a trek that would earn them the highest certification in Soviet mountaineering. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, an experienced hiker. His team, all in their early 20s, were seasoned in winter expeditions. They were not amateurs. On January 28th, they began their journey. One member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early due to illness, a decision that would save his life. The remaining 9 continued north, documenting their journey with photos and diary entries. The images show them smiling, confident, having fun in the snow. On February 1st, they reached the slope of a mountain the local Mansi people called Kholat Syakhl, which translates to Dead Mountain. Instead of camping in the sheltered valley, they made a fateful decision. They set up their tent on the exposed slope. Perhaps for extra training credit, or maybe they got disoriented in the worsening weather. That night, something happened. Something that would defy explanation for over 6 decades. When the group failed to send a telegram confirming their return, their families grew concerned. By February 20th, a search operation was launched. 6 days later, the team found the tent, partially collapsed and covered in snow. What they saw made no sense. The tent had been slashed open from the inside with knives. The hikers hadn't used the entrance. They had torn through the fabric to escape. Inside, everything was left behind: boots, warm clothing, food. Outside, the searchers found footprints, 8 or 9 sets leading downhill toward the tree line, about a mile away. Some were from bare feet, others from socks or a single boot. The footprints were calm, orderly, not running, walking, as if the hikers were in some kind of trance. At the edge of the forest, searchers found the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko lay near the remains of a small fire, dressed only in their underwear. They had died of hypothermia. branches above them had been broken, suggesting they had climbed a tree. 3 more bodies were found between the fire and the tent: Igor Dyatlov, Zinata Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. They seemed to have been trying to return to the tent, but succumbed to the cold. Slobodin had a small skull fracture, but the last 4 bodies those would take months to find. And their condition would turn this tragedy into a nightmare. In May, 2 months later, searchers located the remaining 4 bodies buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine: Ludmila Dubanina, Alexander Kalavatov, Nikolai Thibobrignolis, and Alexander Zolotaryev. They were wearing clothes stripped from the others who had died first, a sign they'd survived longer. But it was their injuries that shattered every rational explanation. Ludmila Dubanina was missing her tongue and eyes. Nikolai Thibobrignolis had major skull damage. Alexander Zolotaryev and Ludmila Dubanina had massive chest fractures, broken ribs, internal bleeding. The force was like a high-speed crash. Yet, there were no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises. The trauma was entirely internal. Even more disturbing, high levels of radiation were detected on some of their clothing. The lead investigator wrote, "The cause of death was a compelling natural force which the hikers were unable to overcome." But what force? The area was searched extensively. No other people, no animal tracks, no avalanche debris. The Soviet government abruptly classified the case, sealed the files, and declared the area off-limits. For decades, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remained a ghost story until the fall of the USSR. When the files were finally opened, over the years, dozens of theories were proposed. Some rationale, some bizarre. The most obvious was an avalanche. Perhaps the hikers heard the mountain shifting and fled in panic. But there was no avalanche debris, and the tent was still standing. For decades, this theory was dismissed. Another theory suggested secret Soviet military weapons tests. This could explain the strange injuries and the radiation, and why the government sealed the case so quickly. Witnesses even reported seeing bright orange spheres in the sky that night. But no concrete evidence of military activity in that exact area has ever been found. One of the most fascinating theories involves infrasound low frequency, sound waves that humans can't hear but can feel. Wind passing over mountains can create infrasound, which has been shown to cause feelings of dread and panic. Could this have driven the hikers into a state of irrational terror, causing them to flee? This theory explains the paradoxical behavior cutting the tent open and walking calmly away. Some suggested the local Mansi indigenous people attacked the hikers for trespassing, but this theory quickly fell apart. The Mansi were peaceful, and there were no signs of an attack. In fact, Mansi trackers helped search for the bodies. One behavior that does have a scientific explanation is paradoxical undressing. In late-stage hypothermia, victims often feel unbearably hot. They strip off their clothes, ironically speeding up their death. This explains some of the scattered clothing, but it doesn't explain why they left the tent in the first place. For 60 years, the case remained unsolved. Then, in 2021, scientists from Switzerland and Russia published a groundbreaking study. Using advanced avalanche simulations, they presented a new explanation: the delayed slab avalanche theory. Researchers proposed that when the hikers dug into the slope to create a flat platform for their tent, they destabilized the snowpack. But instead of collapsing immediately, the slab of snow above them held in place. Hours later, possibly triggered by wind, the slab released. It wasn't a huge avalanche that would bury everything. It was a localized collapse, just enough force to hit the tent. The impact wouldn't have killed them, but it would have been terrifying. The tent suddenly collapsing in the dark, in sub-zero temperatures. In panic, they cut their way out and fled downhill to assess the situation. The plan may have been to wait, then return for their gear, but the temperature was -25 to -30 degrees Celsius. Even a few minutes without proper clothing would be deadly. As for the severe internal injuries, the study showed that a slab avalanche could deliver blunt force trauma consistent with the injuries found on the 4 bodies in the ravine. And the missing tongue and eyes. Decomposition. Ludmila's body was found face down in a stream. Scavengers and natural decay over 2 months in water would account for the missing soft tissue. The radiation. Some of the hikers worked in nuclear facilities. Trace contamination on their clothing from their jobs could explain it. This theory, for the first time, explained nearly every aspect of the mystery with known science. In 2019, 60 years after the incident, the Russian government reopened the case and officially concluded that an avalanche was the cause. But not everyone is convinced. Skeptics point out that avalanches in that area are rare and that the injuries still seem too severe. The debate continues. What we know for certain is this: 9 experienced hikers died under circumstances that pushed the boundaries of explanation. Whether it was an avalanche, infrasound, or something else entirely, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains a haunting reminder of nature's power and the fragility of human life. The mountain, the Mansi called Dead Mountain, claimed 9 lives that night, and their tragic, mysterious story will continue to captivate us for generations to come. If you want to explore more unsolved mysteries, check out my videos on the Anjakun Lake disappearance and the mystery of Amelia Earhart. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.